Don't just look at it and walk away from it. If you write nothing, you will get absolutely nothing. Try and think 1 mark at a time. Ethical and accounting. Do the accounting first. Think of what to say about the accounting. Try and say something, then try and say something else. Then try and say something else. Think what you're doing. And then the ethical issue, maybe it's difficult to spot to begin with. But by the time you've thought through the accounting, you realise it's between the parent and the sub. You realise that it's undervalued, and therefore you're beginning to get suspicious. Even if you simply write, it's not a good idea to sell assets at undervalue, you're cheating the shareholders of the company, the shareholders of the company are suffering, that would get you good marks. Because if you do sell the assets of the company for less than they're worth, the shareholders are losing out. Now it happens that you're selling it to one shareholder, so they gain, but the other shareholders, the NCI, they're the ones which are losing out. So it's about the process of reading these questions. Brilliant. Well done. Now, yesterday we begun to look at past exam questions, but a lot of them were sort of little sort of cut and paste and small questions. Let's have a look at a bigger question. Or let's have a look at sort of a question that's, if you like, intact. And this is on page 102. This is on page 102. MC. Page 102, MC. So this is a past examination question with sort of all 3 parts being kept together. So this is a past examination question with all 3 parts being kept together, and each part is separate. So there is a part A, there is a part B, there is a part C, and there is a requirement. And the requirement is the same. It's a requirement that you will probably come across in the exam. Discuss. Yeah? Discuss how you should account for these under IFRS. It's a classic requirement, and part A is a totally separate dilemma and issue from part B, which is a totally separate issue dilemma from part C. Now there is a small part of me which would like to give you 45 minutes to do this question. But that's not going to happen. We're going to try and be, I'm going to try and be as helpful and productive. I'm aware that it's fairly early on, that some of you haven't completed your revision yet. Let's break it down and do a stop, start, stop, start approach. By that I mean, I don't care about part B for the moment, I don't care about part C for the moment, I would like you to read part A, and just part A. 2 minutes. Can you read part A? Is it about impairment? Is it about intangibles? Is it about government grants? Is it about deferred tax? I don't know, nor will you until you read it. There's a football team and a basketball team. It has a year end of May. They need a new stadium to host sporting events, and these will then be PPE. They commence construction on a new property, on a new stadium in Feb 16. So our year end is May 16, so Feb, March, April, May, so that's 4 months. And this will be continued until its completion, which is after the year end. Now the direct costs are 20 million that have been incurred in Feb, then 50, then 50, then 50 until the year end. MC has not taken out specific borrowings, but it would have avoided finance costs if the stadium had not been constructed. So we're actually worse off because we are constructing the building, we're having to pay more interest. Now the interest is 9%, and MC needs advice on how to treat the borrowing costs in its financial statements. I think you know the answer, don't you? What do we normally do? What do we normally do with borrowing costs? Expense. But what are we going to do here? Capitalize. Specifically because the money has been borrowed in respect of buying, in respect of constructing an asset. So you can, in those circumstances, you can capitalize that interest, but only during the period of construction. Only during the period of construction. So, let's rattle through. I'm going answer plan approach. So normally your finance costs are written off to P&L, but when they relate to the construction of PPE, capitalise, but you would only be able to capitalise during the period of construction. This is effectively testing IAS 23. So you capitalise during the period of construction only, so this would be a 4-month period. In that 4-month period, because up to the year end. So I think we can capitalise, I think we can compute the amount of the finance costs that we would be capitalising. I need to read the question quite carefully. We are incurring costs of 20 million in Feb, and then 50 million each month, and then 50 million each month. So for Feb, we will have borrowed 20, and then we've got to think of March, April, and May. And each month, we're borrowing another 50. So the amount of the loan goes 20, 70. So we borrow 120, we borrow 20, then we borrow another 50, then we borrow another 50, then we borrow another 50. So cumulatively, the amount that we are borrowing is 20 plus 50, plus 50, plus 50. So cumulatively we borrow 170. Have I got that right? Yes, I think I have. Now the interest on the loan is 9%. The interest on the loan is 9%. But the trouble with 9% is it's 9% per year. And we've only had it for 1 month. So in computing what we're doing, our cumulative loan is 20, 70, 120, 170, and whatever that number comes to, yeah, would be the amount you would capitalise. I'm just pausing here for a second because this is a quick few marks on IAS 23 on borrowing costs. Not a big standard. It's a standard that you deal with at F7, and strictly speaking, an F7 student might be able to deal with this kind of thing. Yeah, I'm not bothered about what the number is because you're not going to get the same number in the exam. You can just calculate it, sort it out. I'm happy to move on. Part B is for 10 marks. Part B is for 10 marks. I don't know what it's about. Part A was about IAS 23. You can answer the question without making reference to the accounting standard. I always know what the accounting standard is called because I'm a tutor, it's my job. So I know it's ISA 23. You don't need to quote that. There's no marks in the marking guide for can you remember what the reference is. Yeah, or and it slightly annoys me that the examiner sometimes in his answers he even quotes the paragraph number. Like, what planet is he on? He's trying to be helpful to you. He's not trying to intimidate you. I know that can be an interpretation, but don't worry about referencing the particular accounting standard. Just say the standard on borrowing costs or the standard on impairment. Yeah. To comply with the standard, this is what we need to do. That's all you need to know. Part B. Please, can you RTQ read the question? 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 10 marks.